So what I was going to do in this last presentation, I talked about sort of the top 10 things architects need to know and do. So we talked about by the way, we talked about the architecture community. There's 10 key elements that we're sort of working on. AI and automation was in that mix. We're talking about strategy roadmaps, methods and tools. We're talking about continuous improvement and business transformation. See if I go through this. We're talking about business architecture, practice role, and we're talking about things like S4 as well, because getting a lot of interest from these architects on collaborating on the move to S4, the implementation, as well as the post go live. You know, so many companies have just done the lift and shift, and there were different stages of their deployments that a lot of companies didn't know what was there, right, at that point in time. SIs were generally a couple of implementations behind the fact, right, and knowing what to do. And things we're talking about as well is business process transformation, sort of BTP from an architect's perspective, especially from an SAP-centric organization. It was one of our lists in our top 10. Then we talked about sort of the whole area of mindsets and skills. What new skills do architects need, as well as soft skills, not just technical skills as well in that mix, and also the evolving role of the architects. That's what things we went through in that last session. We had a full room in the last session. So I'm going to talk a bit about the community and how you engage the community, and feel free to engage with me as well. And I'll just give you some background and context, because what I said to the other group as well, content and things aren't meant to live and die at these events. I've done so many events over the years. Like, feel free to reach out afterwards as well, to get some answers to your questions from me or the community overall. Bit of added context, I'm from Canada, Calgary, Canada, and that's just about an hour from my house. It's an area called Banff, and that's the Banff Springs Hotel on the bottom. And just because your climate is so different, that's Shadow Lake Louise, which is in wintertime 30 minutes away. January we get minus 30 Celsius there. So I feel right at home in this weather. This is like a heat wave for me. I was wearing shorts and sandals yesterday, and people at the hotel had like 3 or 4 layers on and were looking at me quite oddly. If I wasn't here this week, the biggest rodeo on the earth is in Calgary. Everyone's a cowboy for 10 days this week in my hometown. I'll really date myself from an SAP perspective. My first Sapphire was 1993 when I was a customer. That guy in the middle is Hasso Plattner, a little bit younger back in that day. And the guy with the sunglasses on the far side is myself back in the day. You know, and back in the day, R3 release 2.0 was the big thing that was being talked about. I first got connected with your country. I was in Toronto working for Utility Ontario Hydro when 7 gentlemen from ESCOM flew to meet me in Toronto to ask about why do SAP and how to do it back in 1996. I think we went live with 3.0b back in the day. I've been heavily involved with user groups, helped build and grow the America's SAP user group on their board, and created many of their different communities over the course of decades. And I've always believed in leveraging the power of community to really extend, when I was a customer, to extend your workforce, in essence. Especially now in this age of social, networking, this more connectivity, and makes more sense now given the rapid pace of change. I'm not sure if any from the mining side, but I was also part of SAP's Global Mining Council. I had a lovely trip to Fancourt one year for one of our council meetings. That was a pretty good event. Even though I suck at golf, it was a pretty good location overall. And I'm involved in, from an SAP mentor side, interacting with, you know, Craig, who's in the front, heads up the UK user group. I've been mentoring and coaching recently the African SAP user group. They're actually going to launch, I've been working with them, we just determined this past week, they're going to launch an enterprise architecture special interest group that's going to meet for the first time in Johannesburg in September as well. So we'll let you know about that. Welcome, ladies. Did you run out of sessions to go to and you figured, what the heck?
No, we're looking for them.
Oh, they're a little hard to find. So, yeah, this room is a little hard to find, right? You folks should get special prizes for sort of seeing in here. So I won't go through these guys, but quick backtrack. I'm from Calgary, Canada. I'm involved in SAP world for like ever. I work with the SAP community, so I'm not SAP. Um, 20, almost 30 years working with the America's SAP's user group, so really customer focused and thinking about accelerating understanding and adoption and helping customers, different parts of the world. And that was Calgary where I'm from. A bit about the SAP community overall. How many of you access, you don't count, well you do count, but you don't right now, sorry Craig. How many of you access community.sap.com?
I get emails from them.
You get emails from them. Yeah, so that was the old SAP developer network that is now 20 years old. Hard to believe. That was September 2003. Pardon? Oh yeah, I already gave her my age. It's way too late. 30 years in this ecosystem. So it's evolving. I'll term it, it's going through a resurgence right now. I mean, SDN was very strong. It took a bit of downturn as it did a platform migration, and now it's coming back. So one of the communities I'm helping drive is a community around customer center of enterprise architecture. So we have SAP Enterprise Architecture Group that I'm actively engaged on. I'm trying to get going another one focused on customer center of excellence. Do many of you have a SAP Customer Center of Excellence in your organization?
Yes.
So what I'm trying, an old friend of mine, a great book on COE was a book called the SAP Green Book, Thrive After Go Live by Michael Doan. Michael unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But my belief as well is the COE needs to be different today. It has to be. There's a whole expectation of pace of change. There's a whole new set of technology, so on and so forth. How many would you agree there's a need for a new COA for like 2024 and beyond? Does that make sense? Is that something you folks would like to hear more about, out of curiosity? How you evolve your COE? So I'm going to be talking to the folks in the user group about doing that as well. It's the same conversation, different parts. You're dealing with cloud, you're dealing with things called FinOps, you're dealing with all these different elements. You got BTP, you got these things called Signavio, you get S4. You know, you're expected to do innovation at a much greater pace. I mean, when we did started my first implementation, contract was signed in 93 and 94. We went live in April of 1996 on 3OB. You're probably, how many of you learned SAP from your first implementation? You know, you learned, when your first project, you learned how to do things well, right? Each upgrade, you repeated what you learned, right? Well, roll forward to today, sometimes you have to forget what you knew, right? And how you did things before, the massive projects, don't really apply anymore. So we have to shift our mindset and almost forget what we know in certain cases to learn how to do some things some new way in this COE. So happy to chat with you further on that. Pardon? Right, and there was a focus on go live, not necessarily adoption, right? And I'll add in this world as well, and a bit of a tangent from what I was going to talk about, but from an adoption side, it's never more so than the consumption of things that are cloud, right? And I'm finding many cases, my wife's actually a CAHRO for a company, and they run a cloud HR solution. And in many cases, people, I don't think, lack some of the confidence to try and activate new things, but sometimes once they try and do it, they go, that wasn't as hard as I thought it was. That wasn't as hard as I once knew. There's a big thing on the cloud side that have to change quite a bit in that mode of SAP has the thing they used to call LACE, land, adopt, consume, expand. It was an internal marketing thing. But you can't really land, adopt, consume, expand. You have to consume something before you adopt it, right? That kind of made no sense. But you almost have to spend more time discovering what's there and looking at these things. And then you decide if you're going to activate it, right? And then you have to make sure it gets adopted from a whole change side. And it's kind of funny. I did a lot of presentations in the 90s on why do R3 and how to do it successfully. I could have taken those 1990 PowerPoint slides, update them to like a 2020 3 version. And some of the aspects around change and adoption, it's just amazing. I think, Craig, you found them, your user group side in the UK, right? It really hasn't changed that much. And that aspect is probably even more important now than it ever has. So just going back to the community side. So again, there's many different topics, many different groups, many different communities in there. There's almost a community for everything from, you know, BTP, from ALM, and so on and so forth in that mix. There's some replatforming going on. And what else can I tell you about that? So it's where it is seems to be evolving, is being a true digital hub for almost all things SAP and to get your questions and answered. And you know, Craig heads up the user group in UK. What I expect to happen is there'll be more interaction engagement with the local user groups as well. They'll interact digitally at a global scale, and really things happen when the user groups like AFSUG and UKI, SIG, and things like that gather with people locally. So let's unpack these things and we go deeper. So I would encourage you folks to sort of sign up for this. How many of you have accessed learning.sap.com? So there's a lot. Max Wessel, he was SAP's Chief Innovation Officer until a couple of years ago, and is now heading up learning at SAP and the whole community side. Really has invested a lot. What was SAP's previous painful learning tool before that? What was the previous learning tool?
Is this the same as Learning Hub?
Painful, that was it. Learning Hub was a painful learning tool, right? Was not very user-friendly and things like that. It was painful. So the next generation of Learning Hub, I'll say next generation, because it was so painful, is learning.sap.com. So there's so much content and learning curriculums that are being embedded inside there, and there's a lot of free learnings.
I can just ask a question. We bought it as part of the RISE program. We're very disappointed with the content, given that it was more focused on BTP and the developer platform rather than the functional user side. Does this have a lot more functional component as well?
That is evolving. And they're moving as well to basically role-based certifications as well. What I told the previous group is, announced at Sapphire was a role-based certification in around enterprise architects were the first out of the gate. And there'll be more role-based certifications that SAP will be rolling out. And what the pattern is basically, SAP is rolling out some of these learnings first to actually their partner ecosystem, and then it's rolling into the customers. Because if they take at scale the partners from a learning side, it has a much better ripple effect, right? If they're sort of first out the gate, then roll out to the customers. Let's see, what else did I want to tell you about learning?
And a reaction around learning.sap.com, not uncommon. When we surveyed our members, it was probably about 20% that visited in the last year.
Yeah.
So it is quite low.
I'll tell you why most of the people just go Google or YouTube at the moment.
Well, actually, no, good point, because it's actually interesting. They're making more everything searchable through Google. So do a search on Google for things you're looking for. It's kind of interesting. Something as simple as that, so many people don't do for a lot of cases. And we'll point back to some SAP channels as well.
Do you need a license?
Some of the things you'll need a license for, but they're some yes, some no in that mix.
I can just say that the benefit of doing it through this way is that you get all the content in there. So you often go through Google, you get like the most, kind of put it,
Who's paid for it?
second?
Who's paid for it?
No, it's just the kind of the most popular ones. There's a lot of content inside of there, especially when you're going through things like ST and MM and F5.
Yeah.
Where there's these components that are not discussed on the Google side because they're not very popular. There's a lot of benefit to it by going through this way. So,
But correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, even the Google search, a lot of cases it's who's paid, right? It's not always the best algorithm on the planet that determines. It's that plus who paid to get bumped up in the notch from a revenue side, which is interesting. And the other thing that here, how many of you use SAP for me?
Starting to.
Yeah. So it's free. That is becoming the one channel into SAP.
So what exactly is this then?
So it is in essence a customer portal. So it will tell you as well what you own, what you're using. It will tell you even linked into different training, and it's free. And all the what's the support thing just got shut down. What's that called? Well, yep, yep. Your, yeah, your cloud spend, everything you can sort of see within in this as well. Yeah. So that's pretty powerful as well. So it's just me.sap.com. And send me a note if I've got some detailed decks on SAP for me. A couple other things that might be of useful to you that we were just talking about in the last session is SAP just announced at Sapphire something called Solution Scout. And actually, they announced it, but they haven't told anybody. Go ahead. Sorry.
Is this free?
Free.
It depends. So it's the portal, the entry point is free.
Right.
It just picks up, it's based on your ID, your S number.
Yeah.
So it'll use your SAP.
You'll need an S number.
Yeah.
An S
Well, your
number
universal
to
ID,
access.
whichever S numbers or
Oh, and move to Universal ID pretty soon, or your other dies.
yeah, so this it works through universal ID, and then it picks up whatever you have under that entry point for your particular universal ID that you're using at that point in time, and then it'll bring in what you are authorized to see.
And what were you saying is chargeable?
So for example, if you've got SAP licenses,
Yeah.
you have your license entry point here, searchable SAP notes will be through here, but you have to obviously be a customer if you want to.
Oh, you have to be a customer, right? But nothing you pay have to use this, right? It's for.
Part of being,
Yeah.
so your administrator will create an S number for you, and then they'll grant you access to what you can.
But it is free for customers.
Yes.
Yes.
That's part of it. Well,
No, no.
in that you get an authorized SAP.
Right.
You have to have an S number.
Right.
It's created by the
Yeah.
people who maintain that for you.
But in truth, once you get into there as well, you're learning how to part of this.
It will show you what you have access to. It's an access point into it, but there's certain things that are free, but certain things that are licensed on the other side.
And there are various group programs that you can get for learning how. So you can get there's the I don't know the exact terminology. You get become small, medium, large. You can buy courses, but you can also buy a subscription to the entire
Yeah.
suite.
Yeah, so it's pretty key to, and some of the other things so Solution Scout, there's a session on tomorrow at Solution Scout. So what it's supposed to be, and I'm looking forward to attend as well, because it actually has not been presented anywhere in the world. Tomorrow's going to be the first presentation on what Solution Scout is, other than it was mentioned at Sapphire in a keynote in May in Orlando. So it's supposed to be a much easier way of you finding stuff. And well, so
Is it a replacement for Roadmap Composer or something?
yeah, I think it's a higher level to tie in many things. So it'll be interesting to see what that is all about. And the other session that I recommend as well is Tim Stower's doing a good session tomorrow on application lifecycle, on Business Transformation Suite is the name. But what it talks about is tying in Cloud ALM, Strategy, Signavio, Tricentis, LeanIX for alternative. It says Business Transformation Suite, but it's more alternative. It's more around continuous improvement engine, and continuous improvement can be big or small, right? SAP likes to use transformation for everything, whereas you as customers, I don't think you like transformations too much. You like some continuous improvement, but transformation people sort of every now and then, but not all the time.
Who's giving the presentation?
Tim Stower is his name. He'll talk about that, and he's the main guy globally around Cloud ALM as well. Three key places to know, so that's just the URL for those particular sites. And let's see, what else are they going to have? So, and what questions are on your minds in many different facets? So how can I help you?
Okay, so my question was, how will AI integrate into SAP?
So there's a whole, send me a note on that. Um, there's a whole, I have a presentation from another friend of mine at SAP that really talks about what areas and what's in what, in essence, LOB areas from an AI perspective. So the intent is to embed AI into SAP.
I think you're already seeing some of that in SAC, aren't you, around the consolidations and the reconciliations of banking, for example. Isn't that got some degree of AI built into it already?
Yeah, I'm not sure so much on that. Well, the other thing a lot of companies doing are, jumping on RPA too, be it with SAP or something like UiPath, to do that for some quick wins. What else is on other people's minds in terms of things you're looking to get answers to? So how many of you did you say aren't on S4 yet?
Authorized but haven't deployed.
Okay.
One of the big questions for me around that, maybe it's not the right session to ask the question, but around UI, because there's a lot around Fiori versus the traditional classic SAP UI versus web UI, and whether all T code, could I put everybody into one? So if I roll up Fiori, would it cover the entire scope of every single
No, not all sessions have Fiori tiles. I'm telling you that now.
Yeah.
my concerns around?
So we're on Fiori, but you can still run a T code from Fiori.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I'm surprised is more S4 customers aren't rolling out mobile in conjunction with S4.
That's a big part of it, yes.
Good you are, because I mean, I'm amazed the number. I've been working with S4 since 2015, and all the S4 implementations, success stories, I hear people talking about what they did. I haven't heard a single customer have talked about deploying mobile in conjunction with an S4. Craig, have you heard any of your customers in UK say about that?
There's a number in the different, I think, areas and different stages.
What technology are they using? Are they straight HTML5 or are they using to get the mobile client out there?
Oh, there's native stuff. I mean, SAP has something called Mobile Start to help with that. But the other challenge with some of the SAP stuff, if it's free, they don't tell you much about it. It's the other thing.
Yes, we're a partner, we're not a customer, but we've helped set up cloud mobility front-end Fiori-based
Yep.
apps on the cloud. So your entry point is cloud platform BTP, and then it's an enablement back into the back end. And then a lot of the stuff's there. You just switch it on. You set up the comms to the back, and you ensure that everything is connected, and that's pretty much it. And then your UI on mobile or whatever Fiori is there. But I mean, it's per. You've got a lot of version prerequisites that you have to put in place. So a lot of it was around making sure we had the right versions from whatever it was to make that particular application work. And then a lot of it's around single sign-ons and being able to log in from those devices into your backend securely, setting up cloud connector into your on-prem systems. So it's a lot of plumbing that has to be done.
So I'm curious, just going around the room, I'd be interested to hear, if I was to ask you what is your biggest challenge that you're hoping to get an answer to at this event? Think about that for a second. This is the audience participation. If there's one thing you want to get answer before heading back to the office from here, what would it be?
How to make SAP easier?
How to make SAP easier? Okay.
I would say it's for me, it's about getting information. So we're fairly new on SAP in terms of Reton in 2014 with another company that in our division that had SAP already. The template that rolled out we feel was not a good fit for what we're doing right now. So we're going to redeploy. So it's really about finding out where to find information at this point in time. That's a big part, is to find using the user group to find connections, just to really give
Yeah, yeah. A good friend of mine did a great presentation. He heads up the services side in the U.S. for SAP around S4. He did a great presentation and workshop for me at another event last year on charting your path to S4. It does a pretty clear articulation on what you need to do and what tools you need to use. If you're interested, I can get you a copy of his deck. And another good friend of mine is SAP's Global Rise Architect. So I'm happy to put you in touch with him on where to go for sources of information. He's a great guy. That might pay your way being here, just that connection. So we'll see. You have to have something you're looking to.
Oh yeah, no. Big problem I've got is take a SAP environment that's running EWM. Take one that's running MM only. Okay, sister companies. To integrate from EWM to MM, it's a nightmare from when you go to EWM in there. Standard functionality. I'll give you an example. You deliver a single batch, one batch. It still puts it as a batch split on the EWM. And they tell me that's standard, they can't change it. So I have to go and change interfaces to cater for the EWM. And I can't do it by direct SAP to SAP integration, I have to use third-party software to do it. So I'm looking for solutions for those because one of the things we are going forward, we want to keep everything SAP to SAP because globally we're becoming a single SAP environment. So I want to do SAP to SAP integration, removing third-party softwares.
Send me a note on that.
Yeah, so I'm
Give me a
curious,
challenge.
what do you have to use in
I'm using the WebSphere ESB bus to do translations for me and restructure IDOCs.
Okay, that's strange, because I mean, you shouldn't have to.
Whoa, I've been forced to.
So
Because that's, yeah, so I don't want to get into detail, but it's just, yeah, it's
Which company are you from?
like me, but we do media integration, and we've done a couple of EWM to SAP integration projects. We haven't used WebSphere. You can, we don't really mind.
So we use the bus for nearly all our integration.
Yeah, is that an architectural decision?
It was there.
it's okay.
That might be the reason.
I think it's loud.
It's small.
enough. Very loud. I've got the loud maker watt last year.
Yeah. 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 Okay, yeah, because you can use integration suite, you can use PFO, although it's end of life, what, it's around 2027, was 2025, now it's 2027, so it's still got a couple of years left in it, so there are options.
Yeah, because this morning I had my phone going this Monday morning. Yeah, no messages flowing. Why? ESB adapter shut down.
Send me a note on that as well.
So we are busy with the enterprise architecture right now. So we're looking at coming up with a strong business case for migrating to S/4HANA.
Okay.
So maybe what you can assist with is how can we maybe access information that will help us to build a strong business case.
Great. Can you send me a note on that?
Sorry?
Can you send me an email on that?
Okay.
Yeah.
One is increased cost post 2027.
Yeah. So what's the story with the EWM? When's the life dying on it? The current one.
Send me a note on that, and I'll do some hunting for you. What's?
So I think we share similar.
Are you from the same company?
Yes, we're the same team. We've
Oh,
run payroll through SAP, and so we've also implemented success factors.
yes.
With our company, and I think what we just wanted to clarify or get knowledge on is, so SAP is very date driven in your payroll space, and trying to see or find ways where you don't have to find workarounds or manual interventions to align dates. Let's say new employees being hired or rehired, and then that replication down into SAP HCM. We finding clashes in terms of dates and that sort of thing.
Yeah, like info time.
We also
The
integration is not
Yeah.
gelling as much as we'd like it to, because I don't want to go and have to do manual calculations.
Yeah.
And so with
Because the dates are just throwing everything out, and
Yeah.
then that one day we have to sit and do manual calculations, where I think now we've actually found that it can work. So
Yes.
it's just a couple of workarounds, which is great.
very
Yeah, but it's
very
also
Get your logistics side and see stock when you put the Don't tell me there's no stock.
ATM is a very special,
Yeah.
special
Yeah.
beast.
And also, I mean, so your PA40 sort of transaction has been taken away from the payroll space because it's all kept now within success factors.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you, are you keeping your payroll in HCM ECC?
For now,
For now.
yes, I do believe that we want to migrate to the cloud, but we're not there yet. Yeah.
I'm very curious to see whether SuccessFactors payroll is going to have country versions built into
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah. That's a huge thing. That's why it's not currently.
So popular. Yeah.
Because exactly what you're saying, we know that migration to SuccessFactors, our big problem was we had to overlap some data because of the way
Yeah.
we were using it to use as tool. And
Yes.
it didn't delete all the entries in. So we made a change.
Yeah.
We also used in BTP, we created in the solution, it was we created a change in there which sorted out how data was used. The only problem we've got right now is time off.
Oh.
And it's because that's the way time off was implemented. The guys put a reference back to the starting date of the employee, which created additional.
Cycles.
So
Yeah.
we're trying to get around that. But other than that,
Yeah.
with the change we made in the BTP itself, that seems to have solved our platform largely.
Okay.
But it had to be a change in the actual interface.
Which is they're not supported.
Exactly. It was done by SAP because we did a model company implementation.
Yes.
So the guy in Romania.
So then
made
they're
the
giving
change
you
for
kind
us.
of a note to say that you.
We hope to include future upgrades.
Yeah. So feel free to send me a note on that. I've got some people I can push out to see if I can help you. Feel free. I'm up for the challenge.
All of you are speaking of is for, I assume it's A1. We are in SAP Business One for the small enterprise.
Business one? Yeah.
Our biggest challenge is we want to integrate with SAP for CRM, for the more data-intensive CRM where you can input data for specifically CRM. The one in SAP Business One is like it's like the HR module, just about details without any insight.
Yeah. That's a good one.
We are struggling. So right now we are almost like having a developer write another program so that we can integrate SAP.
So you run an SAP CRM system as well as the business one.
This, the one in SAP Business One is
Yeah, it's
not.
not red, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we
Oh, you got it. You just needed to just
spoke
video.
to
So send me a note on that. I have a friend in Canada who does a lot with Business One and Business One customers in North America. So feel free to shoot me a.
Some Salesforce integration or something like that you could
Yeah.
potentially use.
Send me a note. My friend is Jory Lamb. I'll connect you guys in on that. Interesting. I thought there was a pretty vibrant Business One community in APJ. Maybe not so much anymore. Do you guys do you deal with the Business One folks in UK much?
Small B1.
Yeah.
Small. Challenge is getting through B1 partners because they own the customers.
I wonder what their B1 future is.
Now we've had 4 sites, we've taken them off and putting them onto S4 ourselves.
Yeah. Or more would be probably public cloud, right? Would be their future.
So
My guess.
straight onto our HANA system.
Yeah. Good.
Yep. From my side, this is why I come to these things to figure out what people are having trouble with and seeing if we can help. So, and also the resources are kind of most of what I'm aware of. So that's also good. If there's
Yeah.
new things, I'm always interested to see if there's something else. So what I would like to, just from an architecture perspective, I know we've got we specifically focus on the integration side. So there's the advisor and the integration solutions advisory methodology, the group that works on integration strategy, and SAP uses their approach and their methodology. Are people organizing a kind of a more enterprise architecture group that collaborates, or is that not something that's kind of formally organized?
No, actually, that is being organized. That was actually my last. Send me a note, or that was my last talk about that.
Okay.
So there's an enterprise architecture community that's now in place globally.
Okay.
That's evolving. So there's that, and they'll interact with the conversations with the different user groups on sharing and engaging. And there is going to be an enterprise architecture special interest group that's going to be set up in South Africa. That's going to launch later in September in Johannesburg.
And is that still on Jam? Because then it was on.
No, Jam is dead now.
Okay, so where's that sitting?
So it's on right now, moving to a platform right now called Koros.
Okay.
Is a platform it's evolving to.
How do you access that?
No, but community.sap.com.
Okay, so it links into it.
Well, yeah, that is the platform. And I forget what the previous one, but all the groups now within that are under the Koros platform, and all the other ones are being migrated over to new blogging, new collaboration. So that's the process that we're going through. And we're going to crowdsource from the community globally what people want to hear about and use that as a channel for the architects to do some curation and sense making. And SAP has communities around different elements of BTP, ALM, so on and so forth. So they're going to do more curation of content from what they're doing over the architects group to share that with the architects and then go deep in the respective communities. Does that make sense? And then talking to user groups about when they get together, be it this group or Craig's group in the UK, hopefully we have better information for them to then go deeper with their customers inside the local markets. Because SAP wants to do the community platform, hey, do stuff at scale that touches many, right? Leverage the user groups in different places to have that more regular face-to-face, very customer-centric interaction, right? Versus just selling at them. That was a question that came up in the last session. Last but not least.
Okay, we'll actually echo what you just said. I'm just looking at ways where I can improve SAP user community in my current company.
Okay.
And just simplify whatever solutions we have in the region.
Yeah. Good.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
So success factors have been taken out of the core and put as a separate service.
Actually, no, it's never been taken. It was always outside the core.
But what I mean to say is we used to have raw HCM.
Yeah, it was embedded inside.
Now the primary product is going to be SAP, and I realize that SAP bought as a company.
Yeah.
Is SAP's strategy going to be moving towards a software as a service where they're going to do more of this integration through BTP into different solution structures on different cloud platforms, or is that just a one-off that they...
Well, I mean, you got to remember they acquired Ariba. There's many other things that they did acquired. They're improving the integrations, and that's been a big pain point with customers. The SAP products often did not integrate that well together. Sometimes integration to competitors' products were better than the SAP integrations. So they're working on improving the integrations, and they're using, I think they renamed API Hub, didn't they? Right? They renamed API Hub. It's called something.
Yeah, it's Gateway now.
It's something else.
And it's not doing XCDL, it now uses
Yeah.
for Ariba.
Is it the business hub?
Oh yeah, business API, yeah.
Something like that, yeah. But there are a lot of out-of-the-box APIs for many non-SAP things. So that's there. And another thing to check out from the BTP side is they have this thing called the Discovery Center. Okay, so you're hearing about Discovery Center missions.
My fears is that the benefits of SAP has always been as an integrated system as opposed to an integrated system. And it was always the issues now with success factors onto HCM to payroll. Now got so much checks to do to make sure things are working properly all over the place. Reba is another one where you've got to go and check to see if things are interfacing correctly. Whereas we was integrated before, it was there.
Yeah.
It makes it a far more complex environment in that.
Well, let me add to that complexity. SAP has also had a greater push now, keep the core clean, so on and so forth, do more in BTP, and also have the partners fill more white space, right? Well, that's kind of good in a way, but you still have to test all those things, right? And you still have to manage all those things. So that is sort of evolving. It was easier once upon a time when everything was fully integrated.
Business accelerator.
Business accelerated.
API.sap.com, which is easier.
Yeah. Much easier.
They keep renaming these things.
Oh, yeah.
Do a name change.
So we're out of time. I hope the bit of a conversation was useful. And to me, the most important thing, and I'm serious, feel free to reach out, sort of, challenge me. I know a lot of people in the SAP ecosystem. I don't know all the stuff. I mean, the different user groups in different places to, you know, crowdsource your answers, right? To your questions. So I've been working as well with the, trying to coach the last number of months with your user group on evolving the user group as well. Just like everything else is changing, user groups need to change and evolve in the mix as well. Thank you.